Welcome to the Life You're Made For with me, Dr. Heather Penny. We're going to be having conversations that talk about us spiraling up versus spiraling down, because we all want to be living lives that are about thriving, not just surviving. This is the life you're made for. So let's get going. Welcome, Sonja. It's so good to have you here today.
Hey, it is so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me, Heather.
Of course. We just had a brief conversation before we started, and I already like you.
Well, I like you too. That makes two of us.
Yes. Some people I bring on here, I'm old friends with, or I've known them for a long time, or I've known them in the field, but you're a new friend and you got introduced to us with your PR rep there. And already I'm loving what you're about. So before we jump in, give us a little bit an idea of what you do and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, certainly. Well, my mission in life is to support career professionals. I primarily work with mid to senior level tech professionals, mostly tech, but I do work across all industries. And I really work with professionals to help them have greater meaning, better work-life balance, or better work-life harmony, like we were talking about before we jumped on the show here, and significantly higher pay. So what I do is I work with individuals to help them identify what exactly should they be focused on in their career? What are their short, medium, and long-term career goals? And how do they develop an implementation plan to actually bring that about? So what kinds of skills should they be working on developing? And then how do they get the right exposure so that if they want to get promoted internally, they have those opportunities? And or if they're ready to look elsewhere, how do they actually get recognized in the most meaningful way so that they can land the kinds of positions that they really desire? So, above and beyond like, oh, I just want to get another job. I'm working with folks who are really out to do meaningful work and have the kind of impact that they want to have in their career, whether that means rising up the ranks and progressing into higher levels of leadership, becoming a specialist, or transforming their career in some sort of way. Like a lot of folks come to me and they're like, I've been doing this for 10 plus years, but now I want to do this. So how exactly do I create that transformation and do it in an easy and meaningful way so I don't have to like make huge steps backwards, so I can kind of keep moving forward from where I am now, but continue to have a more fulfilling career and be working with the kinds of organizations that will really respect and appreciate, acknowledge and celebrate like who they are as a professional as well.
I love that. We need more of that. And the reason why I wanted to even bring you on my show, I'm thinking about so many of my listeners here are such hard workers, and they are moving up, and they're also moving out as they try and shift into new careers or new vocations or new entrepreneurial adventures. I think what I loved about your work when I was reading a little bit about who you are and what you do, it resonates so much with my dissertation research, where it was really focusing on career fulfillment and this idea of finding your own really career self-efficacy to be able to move forward in the way that you wanted to, learning how to ask new questions. You mentioned something earlier, and I think my listeners are going to be intrigued with this. Well, you said short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, and you passed over it very quickly, but I had to go back to it. I go, ooh, I want to hear more about that, and I think our listeners do too. What does that mean to set short-term goals for your career, medium-term goals, and then long-term goals?
Yeah. So, I'm actually, to give greater context here is like, I actually encourage people to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. Now, it could be that timeline could be a little bit different depending upon where you are in your career. So if you're an early career professional, I might actually even recommend changing once a year. Mid-career, maybe 2 to 3, maybe even 5 years. Later stage career, maybe you're going to stick around longer because you found something that's really fulfilling to you, making the kind of impact that you want to make, or, you're in a good role and you like where you're at. If you like where you're at, there's no real need to change, except when we think about that holistic career path, we want to be thinking far in advance of where are you now and where would you like to be? Because I end up talking to a lot of professionals who, they've just kind of like patchworked together a bunch of ad hoc experiences. And they're like, I did this, and then I did this, and I did this. And a lot of people say, I never had to apply for a job in my life. I had people offer me jobs, or I had different positions or whatnot. But then they get, 10, 15 years into their career and they kind of look back on what they've done and they're like, those things don't all necessarily like connect, and once you get to a certain point in your career, you really need to have those dots connected so that it makes sense of where you're going. So when I think about, helping a client sit down to map out what are their short, medium, and long-term career goals, I like to ask them, where do you imagine yourself to be 10 years, 15 years down the road? A lot of people say, I want to be an executive. I want to be in the C-suite. That does not happen overnight. And so if you don't have a clear understanding of what skills that you need to be developing along the way, then how are you actually going to make that happen at the point in time that you want to be there? Right. So a lot of people are either executive bound, or maybe they want to start their own business. Very few business owners, I think, or at least people who aspire to be a business owner, may or may not necessarily have a full understanding of like all of the skill set that is required to run a business. I certainly didn't,
I didn't either. Yeah.
Like 10 plus years ago, it was like, oh boy, if I knew that this is what I was actually going to be doing, running my own business, would I have chosen the same? I probably would have, but I would have tried to prepare myself for it a little bit better. So same thing, no matter where you're going or what you want to be doing in your career, always be thinking about what's next, or what's the skill sets that are truly desired at this day and age. And is that something that you're interested in learning about? Like right now, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, like a lot of those are the really, really hot topic buzzwords, particularly in tech, where, I mostly work with folks who are in tech, but it doesn't matter. Whatever your industry is, it's like, where is the industry going? What is the desired skill set? And is that something that you want to do? And if it is, make sure that you're aligning yourself in the right way so that the right opportunities are presented to you, or you're proactively creating those opportunities for yourself so you can continuously grow those skill sets. And then, if there are internal promotions that are available, you want your leaders to be thinking of you as the first pick, the first choice for an open opportunity. And, or if you want to go somewhere else, you gotta already have those skills lined up so that you can interview effectively, showcase who you are and the results that you've generated in those areas so that you're the top candidate for a new job offer.
I love that. With my 3 C's, clarity, confidence, courage, this clarity of knowing where you want to go. But one of the things I'm even learning too, as I work as an executive coach, is clarity on how to say where you want to go. What I have experienced when I work with people is sometimes they don't have clarity on where they want to go, but more importantly, they don't have clarity on how to say it. So I'll even coach them on saying, well, have you mentioned that to your supervisor? I remember working with one amazing leader, and I thought she was really happy in the director role. When I asked her, I said, what do you want to be doing? And she had never shared it with me. So I had made this terrible assumption, like we do sometimes, saying, oh, I thought she's happy in the director role. But one day I was like, she was feeling really restless about it. I asked her, I go, well, what do you want to be doing? She goes, I want to be VP. I want to be the vice president. And I go, I had no idea. I'm so glad I asked. And I found my coaching shifted over to a completely different career trajectory, saying, this is where you want to end up. Well, then let's talk about this conversation, because we've been talking about how to manage your director role when you want to be a VP. And sure enough, once we shifted that, and once she let me into that, but had the clarity of that's what she wanted. And I think more importantly, maybe giving herself that permission to say it out loud, it was really powerful. And about a year later, she advanced to the VP role, and I was really proud of her.
Fantastic. What a great evolution, and it's so great that you're asking your clients those questions. When I'm working with clients, we're always looking at short, medium, and long-term career goals and thinking about how do you position yourself for that next step too. Yeah. Like you said with your client, right? It's like she had never even mentioned it to her direct boss. Like, we need to be proactively taking steps to not just learn the skill set, but then also be looking for those opportunities. And a lot of that is asking for the opportunity, or letting people know that this is where you're going and where you're growing, and like asking for that opportunity, like, what do I need to do to be considered for this level? Or if I was to get promoted, what results do you need to see from me before, HR or whoever the powers that be, like what results do they need to see from me before we can actually move me into that new level or title?
Yeah. And I think even that experience I had several years ago made me lead out with that question. Okay, where do you want to end up? It helps me give me the clarity I need to come alongside them in the journey, but also it helps them get the clarity they need to voice it out loud. I also was really surprised to hear you say you encourage them to change jobs every 2 or 3 years. First of all, I felt this incredible relief because my resume looks very, very flexible and adaptable because I love so many different things. I'm a huge learner. I don't think I ever worked past more than 4, maybe 5 years at a position until I became an entrepreneur. Isn't that funny? So I've been owning my own company for over 10 years now. And I think it has enough stimulation, enough change, enough learning opportunities that I'm not getting bored. But I'm curious, I grew up in an era that said you don't want to have these short stints at places because it really hurts your credibility in the field. Am I hearing that paradigm is kind of shifted?
Yes, I think it definitely has shifted, especially as the younger generations are coming into the workforce. Perhaps you've heard the term the gig economy. I think that
I don't think I have. What is that?
The gig economy is much more about living in the world of contractors. So you have one gig here, kind of more of a freelance style.
Sure.
That's not true across the board, but I think that type of mentality is a little bit more appealing to younger generations, that they have more freedom and flexibility. And, maybe they go work with this client for a while and then they work with this client for a while. So, that's not for everybody. I think some people really enjoy that kind of lifestyle and other people would rather have more security or stability. But I think we've definitely been moving more and more and more towards that. And I think that, there have been a lot of evolutions in the world of career development and, like 50 years ago or whatnot, my parents, my dad worked for the same company for 30 years. He retired. He has a pension plan. He has all those things. That's like completely unheard of, these days, unless you work for the government or like very specific industries. But I think now it's up to each of us to like proactively manage our career. And in order to do so, you do need to transition every once in a while. And we need to keep our skill set fresh. We need to, reach out and get new perspectives and, work with different organizations, work with different clients, work in different work environments. I find that actually will help you grow much more as a professional and much more as a person too. Is just like, having the opportunity to engage and interact with different types of people, different leaders, different systems, different processes, all those kinds of things. I was in consulting for a while and that was actually such a great career builder.
You learn a ton, don't you?
You learn a ton.
No.
And, I was with one organization and I actually worked with a couple different consulting firms, but I was like with one organization for 1 year. And then I was with another firm for 5 years. But, in that 1 year and that 5-year time period, I worked with numerous different clients and I learned so much, even though like the functional skill set of what I was doing was mostly the same. The application of it was completely different because of the people that I was engaging with and the systems and the processes and, just getting embedded into a new culture and a new environment. Like you learn so much and things get done differently everywhere. And knowing how to get the work done is just as equally as important as like the skill set that you have to do to back it up.
I love that you brought that up because I think it's a great place to kind of segue into. You have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. And you probably have to, for me, it really challenged my EQ, my emotional intelligence. I had to make sure that was growing alongside it because you have to be able to read the room sometimes in a matter of seconds and be able to figure out how to best step into that space to best serve that organization or that group or even that individual leader. And I think it was fun for me to learn how to get that piece challenged which leads me over into this idea of resiliency. I saw a little bit about your focus on that and your passion about resiliency, but I think as we look at moving in and out of jobs a little bit more and allowing yourself to be curious about your skill set and create new skill sets and have a learning growth mindset, I think it does require not only adaptability, flexibility, and probably a significant EQ that continues to emerge and grow, but also as a resiliency. Can you speak to a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think we've all encountered adversity at various different points in our lives. And I think the markers of true growth is how you respond to problematic situations when they arise, and how do you overcome it, and how do you rise above it. And, there's no shortage of opportunities to encounter adverse situations. Could be,
So well
simple. Yeah, I mean, but it could be as simple as like receiving feedback from a coworker that you don't agree with, or you're getting a not so great performance review, or maybe you've been laid off, or you started a business and the business didn't work out, and now you're in debt because you invested so much in it and it didn't work out. Or moving
over for advancement.
Passed over for advancement, and there's all kinds of things in life, right? I mean, having a traumatic upbringing, or having relationships that didn't work out, going through divorce, losing a parent, losing a child, there's so many different things that can come up in life that can present us with those really very difficult challenges. But I think it's a matter of, how do you handle those situations? And sometimes you really need to create time and space to grieve, like what actually happened. And so you can't necessarily just jump right into, oh, it's okay, it'll be fine, I'm moving forward. But there is like that period of grief, and really allowing yourself to feel the feelings. And we were chatting earlier about being a whole person, and like really allowing your body to process what's ever going on. I think we're a very mental society. And so beyond just thinking through it, like, how do you actually allow your body to process it? And then ultimately, like, what are the things that you can do for self-care to kind of rebound and move beyond whatever the challenging situation was, to maybe be better off than where you were before. And sometimes it takes a unique look at perspectives to actually feel like you're better off than where you were before. But, I've certainly been through my own fair share of challenges. And, the times that I find when I can be the most resilient is when I can look back on it and I can say, okay, wow, here's what I learned from that situation, or here was my part in it. Like, here's what I did to contribute to it. And sometimes that's really difficult to do because you have to take responsibility for what you said or did or how you treated someone. But then also, like, what can I learn and how can I do it differently next time? Or, what's the new perspective to have in life now moving forward that's going to allow me to approach things in a much more conscious fashion moving forward?
Yeah, I'm hearing a running thread here. I'm loving what you're saying. Earlier, you talked about being proactive about guiding your career. Just now, you used the term taking responsibility. I think what I have learned is probably the core in my work with people is this awareness that they get to have this true empowerment of self, but it starts with knowing yourself, and it starts with self-care. So if we've divorced the two, we've said, I want to know myself, but I don't want to really slow down and get to know myself or give myself self-care. You can see how we're going to be incongruent with any level of resiliency. We can't get there. And so in my work with people, and I work with a lot of high-powered and high achievers and very smart people. But what I have to say is, hey, you got to slow down. You got to slow down to be able to get the clarity you need. And I use the term restorative rest, mind, body, heart, spirit. And that whole person is trying to tell you something. Your mind's trying to tell you something. Your body's trying to tell you something. Your heart's trying to tell you something. You're all trying to tell you something. And we get to stop and slow down and listen to it. And I would think that that's taking full responsibility for yourself. But it seems like a really nice bridge right over to resiliency, huh?
Oh boy, amen. Amen to everything that you just said right there. And it is a hard lesson to learn, let me tell you. Everything you just said right there, I've worked with my own coach on. I've had multiple coaches that I've heard that exact same message from multiple coaches. And I'm like, what do you mean I need to slow down? I am slowing down. What are you talking about? I'm resting. I'm sleeping.
Oh, I get negotiated down. I'm they're pitching me a deal and I'm like, you can't talk me out of this. I'm going to be stronger than you at this moment. Just say, no, rest is part of it. I jokingly say, sometimes I feel like they're racing the car by and throwing the door open, saying, jump in, Heather. And I'm like, no, I'm not jumping in. You need to stop the car. And then we can get our clarity and we can get our confidence. And then we can take the courage we need to move forward in life.
It's anti-intuitive though, or maybe if you're listening, it's intuitive.
It's so.
But if you're not listening, counterintuitive. Thank you. If you're listening, it's intuitive, and you're like, oh, you know what? I need to slow things down here. I need to listen. I need to pay attention. But if you're in that like fast-paced momentum, in my experience, I don't hear what I need to hear. And then the lesson just comes back and it comes back and it comes back and it keeps repeating itself. The situations just keep showing up until it's like, okay, Sonja, how many more times do you want to bang your head against this wall before you actually figure this one out?
I know. I've been there. That's why I wrote the book. I think the book is probably for me as much as it is for anybody else, because I wanted to help kind of crack the code. How is it that some people live with more clarity than others? Oh my goodness. As I'm maturing and aging in life, I'm realizing it is so counterintuitive to slow down and pull over, especially someone like me who likes to run fast, who loves to achieve, who loves productivity, who loves success. And I have my own little almost addictions to those things. But to be able to slow down and say, Heather, you already know where this is going to take you. You're going to be going, 120 miles per hour, but you're not going to end up where you want to be. If you just pull over the car right now and take a look at that map and figure out a new route, you're going to get back on the right route and you're going to go where you need to go. But we get addicted to that high of staying in motion. And that's, I think, speaking to this counterintuitive thought process that I have to really push up against, not only with myself, but with clients. But I'm hearing this personal sense of responsibility is saying, I got to pull over because in there, I will find my resiliency.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I would love to talk about right now. My mind is ding, 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 ding. We live in this culture where it's such a fast-paced culture and we are rewarded for hard work, whether we get the result or not. Like the results are oftentimes rewarded, but even the hard work of it, or just being able to, what's the term that I've used or I've heard before is to say like, hard work is victimhood. Oh, but I worked so hard on it. I put so much time into that.
Martyrdom. Yes.
Yes. And our culture really rewards it. And, I kind of got indoctrinated into that way of living and being. Corporate America is all about it, right? How many hours are you putting in? Oh, and like even, you sent an email at, I got your email at 10 p.m. last night, as if like, oh, thank you for working so hard.
Yeah. You're welcome.
And, but I learned to be very personal here for a moment, and be really vulnerable. I learned this really hard way. I actually am a card-carrying member of Workaholics Anonymous. Yes. It is a real 12-step program.
Me too. Yes.
Oh my God. And it's such an amazing program. Yes. And I have learned so much about myself and my approach to life and how much I heralded my identity off of the work that I do in the world. And I am not my work. My work is my work.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what I do. And I feel very honored to get to do the work that I do. But I've had to kind of like separate out my identity from my work. And when you own your own business, it's so easy to do because it's like, I am my business. No, the business is the business. I am me, and I get to be separate from my business. So, for everyone out there who's listening, just like highly encourage you to take this to heart, is that like, we are our own people, and our identity is not by the work that we do in the world. The work is a byproduct of who we are, and something that we honorably do in this world.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate your vulnerability. If you don't mind, I'd just love to build on it for our listeners. First of all, I want to affirm that I too am in that, and that's why I opened my coaching company that I did over a decade ago, is because I just saw it not working. And I saw the path that corporate America was on, that these high-powered leaders were on, that even women like me who needed to leave the workplace and wanted to for a period of time, but didn't felt like they had the permission to come back in, or somehow they were behind. I really want to kind of address this space for all our listeners right now. When Sonja shared it, that was that clarity piece that's saying, this isn't working for me. In fact, I got to find a better way. That's what we know is true. The confidence piece is really what she believes. What I heard her say, her false belief was her identity is connected to her work. Her true belief began to say, I'm a separate person from my work. And that's where the change began to happen. The courage piece then is you have the courage to actually take action. So I'm assuming you, because of where you are today, you started taking action off these new belief systems of saying, wait a minute, my identity is not my work. How did that shift you into that courage space of taking action?
Shifting into the courage space of taking action, I think for me, it's actually been about slowing down and taking less action. Like still taking action, but being more clear in who I am and what I'm about and what I want my true focus to be in this world. So instead of just like constantly going and keeping the engine revved up at 90 miles an hour, which, by the way, there are some biochemical things that are happening in the body when you're operating at that level. And we are not designed to run on adrenaline all the time. Yeah. And what I found for myself, I was like, I had all this adrenaline just constantly pumping through my body. It made it very hard for me to sleep. When you can't get good rest, you can't, your body cannot repair itself. And so it has been, a true process of slowing down. It's also been a lot about learning more about the differences between masculine and feminine energy. And it doesn't have to be a gender thing. I see it more as like yin and yang, or the energies associated with it. Right. And I just realized that I was so in that like masculine giving space. And I thought that was where my power came from. I thought that's where, that I could be my best self. And what I'm learning more and more is that it's actually about slowing down and kind of having more receptive energy and listening and paying attention and seeing, like, before I'm just, running at 90 miles an hour and taking action on every idea that I have, like, slow down, pay attention, identify the things that I actually should be moving forward on. And then when I move forward, it feels so much more clean and clear and so much more grounded in a way that it's like, I can kind of like trust that the results will come because it's like a natural unfolding versus just like doing and hoping and expecting and wishing and, oh, let's make this thing happen, and there's a big difference between like forcing an outcome versus being a part of the process. That doesn't, if you're in receptive energy, it doesn't mean don't take action, but like taking clear action and trusting that the results will unfold naturally because you're in total alignment with who you really are and what's truly intended for you.
I love that. And I love that you brought up the gender thing, just because I was interviewed someone, Dr. Susan Howell, who wrote a book about genders. and leadership. And it was fascinating. I interviewed her on my show.
I listened to that episode, by the way.
What'd
Great
you
episode
think?
if you
Wasn't
haven't
it
listened
great?
to it.
Yes.
Oh, it was so great. Yes. I
love
loved listening
her.
to the messages, that boys and girls receive and how,
Yes.
how that like proliferates throughout life.
Yes. And as an educator, I remember hearing some of that stuff too, and in my earlier career stage, but I think what I'm learning too is it's less about the gender conversation. We don't need to get into that, but it's more about this idea of be true to who you are. But when you try and put on maybe something that was seen as a masculine or a stereotype or some kind of gender stereotype that you're supposed to be, and you try and wear that, and you try and be that kind of leader, it's not your true sense of self. For me, I began to realize I was trying to be that masculine, which is push and move strong and be out in front and say it the loudest. It's not really my personality. I'm very collaborative. I actually very curious. I like learning and listening. As I shifted more into my true sense of self, first of all, I think not only did I become happier in my career, but I also became much more successful, where I was able to just step into these spaces that say, this is who I am. You may like me, you may not like me, but this is who I am. And what I'm realizing is, as a leader, I value the holistic. My mind is constantly telling me something. My heart is telling me something. My spirit is telling me something. My body is telling me something. And I do know with some of the research with the hemispheres, with the left and the right lobe of the brain, I do know that the divider there is much shorter or narrower for women, so that they're able to hop back and forth. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful kind of superpower that we have. Have you heard that?
Well, I actually heard that women have 30% more connective tissue. So I think it's the same thing as what you're saying.
Yes.
But there's more connective tissue, 30% more on women. So it's actually easier for women to integrate the right and the left hemispheres.
Yes, that's exactly right. And when they looked at the brain, they saw that the bridge between the two hemispheres was much narrower, so it was able to get back and forth much quicker. And I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm sure that I'm not saying it right. But that's stuck with me all the time, because this is why we're able to kind of shift. But it's also why maybe sometimes the shadow side of that, we can't compartmentalize as much. So when you're asking me to show up and just be totally at work, and I've got maybe a 5-year-old at home, or I'm trying to care for an aging parent, or I can't do all that. I've got to be able to figure out how to step into that space, be who I need to be for that moment, preserve who I am, and be able to communicate what it is I need in order to do my job at the best capabilities. And I notice a lot of women are scared to say that. They just try and power through, white knuckle it through. And I go, you've got to speak up, because they want the best of you. And it's your job. This is going back to personal responsibility. It's your job to say, this is what I need in order to get the best out of me as an employee. And I'm here to ready to go, and I'm ready to serve, but I can't do it in the way that maybe you're asking everyone else to do it. And it could be as simple as, I need to leave at 4:00 on Thursdays to pick up my kid, or it needs to be, I need to work from home this day, or it can be some of these other creative solutions that allow us to be able to step in that full space of our true self and how it is we need to lead in order to be our best self, versus feeling the pressure to lead like somebody else.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of what I hear you saying there is, so situational leadership, right? If you're with your family, one type of situation calls you to be a certain kind of leader, whether it's with your parent or your kids or husband, wife, whatever. At work, different situation, right? And I don't think that we need to justify why we're doing certain things either, right? As like, I heard you say I need to leave at 4:00 to pick up my kid. That may be true, but why not? Why can't we just say I need to leave at 4:00 today?
Yes.
And so, I hear the situational leadership. We don't need to justify or explain why we're doing certain things. It's like, it's up to us as a leader in ourselves to just know what we need. The why is for us,
Ooh, I like that.
If you need to describe why you need to leave, okay. But, does that like create a certain reputation for yourself, or is there meaning inherent behind that somebody else might be like, oh, she's always leaving early to go pick up her kid? Who cares? It's my life. I came in at the time I came in. I'm going to leave at the time and I'm going to leave because I have my life outside of my job. So I'm going to go take care of what I need to do. And the other thing that I wanted to point on was that, like, we're talking about caring for your whole self. Like, in moments and times, yes, you're going to have to step in and use the situational leadership in that moment to move through whatever that environment calls for. But then what are you doing, if that is in any way, shape, or form depleting, what are you doing to care for yourself after that? Or, at times when you're not busy with the kids, when you don't have your boss breathing down your back or whatnot, right? It's like, how are you creating the time and space for yourself to re-energize yourself, to come back to yourself, to refill in the pieces so that you get to live from that whole dynamic self that you are, that you really deserve to live from, and that you should, to be able to be operating in the way that's best for you and the way that's best for everyone around you too.
Yeah, it's your best gift. And I know this is something I've had to work with clients on, even just in my own personal development. I don't think we know, or what used to work for us in our 20s doesn't work for us in our 30s or 40s. So I always tell people it's a moving target. And then the second thing is, I don't think we really trust it. Like, I really do need to leave at 4, or I need a nap today, or I need, like, we don't really trust it. And so we power through. We get someone else to do that duty at 4. So we don't we don't feel that our respect or our credibility in the workplace is being jeopardized. We don't really trust that what we have to offer, or what it is that we need, is valued. So I think understanding that, listeners, I just want to hit on that. Knowing what you need and then trusting it is so critical in returning home to your sense of self. I just spoke.
And it's much easier to fill a half cup than it is to fill a completely empty cup. Because then you're starting from scratch.
Yeah. I love that you say that. I think of my gas tank all the time, and I would rather just be like a quarter of a tank low and still have that 3/4 in, but just kind of fill my quarter tank back up to full, versus let it go on empty and run it on fumes, pulling over.
Absolutely.
That is a lot of work to come out of that space. And I've been there, and I thought I will never go back there again. So really, to your point, the goal really is recognizing that last quarter of a tank and making sure you're just monitoring that quarter of a tank. It doesn't have to get below half point.
Yeah. And the anxiety that comes with that, you're driving around your car.
Yeah.
And it's not completely empty yet, but you're paying attention. You're like, oh, I got to find gas. At some point in time, I'm going to have to get gas. And then how many times you keep getting in your car and you see the same thing before you actually just go get gas.
And what kind of driver are you? You're making everyone else anxious around it, right? What kind of employee are you? You're making everyone else anxious around it. You're not really giving your best. So giving your best is really filling that tank up. I love that you're pointing that out.
And it feels so good when you, like, when I drive away from the gas station, I have a full tank of gas. There's just that, like, there's peace in the world right now, even if it's just in my own car, it feels very peaceful.
Yep. So for my listeners, I got to zero in on this. The false belief we have is we got to run our tank down to empty. The true belief I want you to hang on to is it doesn't have to get below the halfway point. You get to monitor it sooner, and you don't have to. It's almost like we victimize ourselves. And this is where I'm gently saying we got to take responsibility for our lives, but we let the gas level get down so that we don't have the fuel we need to move forward in life. Wow, Sonja, it's been such a pleasure. I can't believe how fast this time went.
I know.
I like to, as we wrap up here, I'd like to ask this question. I've stopped asking if you do it, and I've just started realizing every person who is really conscious of kind of holistic living and making sure that they are living their best life and stepping into that with more clarity and confidence and courage. We've learned the secret of how we start our day. So I love asking this to all my guests. What is it that you do? What is it, your morning rituals that you do that starts your day and helps you start your day off well?
The morning routine. Yes, so good. Oh, so I will be fully honest here. I've tried so many times to start a morning routine and keep the morning routine. I would say that for me, it's more about just like having a routine in life. So I always meditate every day.
Oh,
Do I do it first thing in the morning? Sometimes I have time for it. And if I can, I want to pop out of bed and meditate immediately.
yeah.
So I'll talk about my ideal morning routine. And then if it doesn't happen in the morning, I just make sure I try to find time for it, like when I can.
Mm,
And I don't be guilty. I don't let myself feel guilty for it because
good.
I've been in that space before and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I did so good. I did it 5 days in a row. And then the sixth
Mm-hmm.
day, something happened and I couldn't do it. So I was like, okay, no
Mm,
problem. I'll do it 7 o'clock at night. It's fine.
yep.
Um, so my ideal morning routine is that I would wake up, meditate for at least 15 minutes,
Mm,
do journaling, and I have a process that I call two-way prayer.
mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, I don't call it that. It is called two-way
Mm-hmm.
prayer. It's a process that I learned. And it's actually like, putting a question out there to your higher power,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that means to you. It could be your highest
Mm-hmm.
self, could be God, could be whatever, the universal
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask a question, and it could be as simple as, what do I need to know right now? Or it
Mm,
could be about, you know, how do I talk to this difficult client? Or how do I,
mm-hmm.
how am I going to tell my partner about this thing that's bothering me or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually allow my highest self, higher power, to answer me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the answers that I get back versus me just journaling and saying like, oh my God, I got to talk to my partner about this thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually like you have your highest power right to you. So it's like, dear sweet Sonja, unique child of God, here's what I have to say about this. And it's
Yes.
so amazing, the
Yes.
answers that I get coming from that space. Then after I complete that, I would, and sometimes I'll just do morning pages as well, if you've heard of morning pages, but I
Oh
actually have
yeah.
kind of
Cameron.
migrated. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. But
That
I've
was
kind of
starting to stress.
migrated to,
That was stressing me out though. Did 3 pages.
right. See,
Yeah.
that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
I tried it and then I would like put guilt and shame on myself because I'm like, I did 2.5 pages. I still need
Well, we're
another
achievers.
half of a page or
Yeah,
whatever.
we're recovering achieving addicts.
Yes, exactly. And then, from that point forward, I would go and work out. Could be as simple as a walk around the neighborhood, or maybe I go to the gym, do cardio or strength
Mm-hmm.
training. Somewhere in there, I'm going to fit in breakfast and coffee or
Mm-hmm.
chai. But I actually try to reserve caffeine until a little bit later in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I've been experimenting with intermittent fasting, so that's kind of interesting. And yeah, it's just really giving myself time and space in the morning. And even if I have a really busy day and I kind of got to like get up and go, I
Mm-hmm.
like to take at least 5 minutes to myself to
Mm-hmm.
just sit and be silent or say some positive affirmations, say
Mm-hmm.
some positive things to myself, say what I'm grateful for in life,
Mm.
whatever it might be. So I think it's more of the practice of doing it rather the amount of time or the number of activities that you dedicate.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you do it in the morning, midday, evening, whatnot, I think just
Mm-hmm.
creating that time and space for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it in whatever way works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I end up like drawing a bath at night and I'll meditate in the bath, and that's
Mm.
good,
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. Well, let it be encouraging to you that if you have a hard time keeping the same schedule every day, that means you're super creative and you're super intelligent because our brain needs different outlets in order to get that restorative rest. And so
Mhm.
I just love that you mentioned that. And I wanted to make sure that we just encourage our listeners too, that you get to do what feels right for you for that morning. You have a repertoire of maybe morning rituals, and I have a repertoire. Some of them are very similar to what you do, Sonja. But I know what my active mind needs. I know what my body needs. I know what my heart needs, and I know what my spirit needs in order for me to step into that day. And being able to have that clarity, and I just did my 3C journaling this morning, which is clarity is what do I know? What do I know? What is it rattling around in my brain? And what is it that I'm worried about or thinking about or chewing on? Confidence moves right into that space of what am I believing? Is it a false belief or true belief? And I reject the false belief and then the true belief. And then I move right into my meditation or my prayer time based on the true belief.
Mm.
And I think that's the life transformation that we can start doing. How many times do we pray or meditate on the false belief? It just makes us more neurotic. At least for me, it does.
Oh,
I'm like, I don't need any
yeah.
help with that. I need to like mentally reject the false belief and then grab onto true belief. And then that's what I want to meditate on. That's what I want to think about. In office, if people want to pray with me or stand with me in my truths, I tell them, pray this way for me, stand with me in this way, because I want an intelligent connection with it, not just again, I'm taking full responsibility for how I want people to support me. So I love that. And then the courage, of course, piece is always about taking action based on my confidence and my clarity and the new true belief that I'm grabbing onto. We automatically know the action we need to take that day. So it's as simple as take more breaks or call these 3 people. I mean, it could be very concrete or it could be really elusive or abstract. But either way, just learning how to listen to your mind, body, heart, and spirit is so critical in the morning. So thanks for sharing that.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing your morning routine as well.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right, Sonja, it's been a pleasure having you. Take care, and I'll be cheering you on.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's really been an honor and a pleasure being on your show. And thank you for all the great work you're doing in the world.
Oh, you as well. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We had such a great time today. And obviously, we are all stepping into this life that we're made for. But isn't it nice to have a little bit of support along the way? If you want to find out more about the life that you're made for, come find me at heatherpenny.com. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a review. That really helps us out and helps spread the word. You get to step into the life that you're made for. Cheering you on.